Kwamta Kabu, Hanatu Ishaku, Deborah Nuhu, Glory Iyaga. These are the names of some of the over 100 girls still missing 5 years after they were abducted from the school in the dead of the night. Their crime, according to the Boko Haram sect, was receiving Western education. Although this notorious act took place in Chibok, Borno State, northeast Nigeria, the Falamo roundabout here in Lagos, southwest of the country, serves as a memorabilia of some sort to their kidnapping.
Lagos, what are we demanding? Bring back our girls now and alive.
This singular act by the dreaded group put it on the international map and started a social media hashtag that went viral globally. That global attention has died down somewhat. But here at the Falamo roundabout, these placards serve as a reminder that these young women remain unaccounted for and that their families remain in suspense, pain and despair. Their disappearance, no doubt, cast a shadow on the government's ability to protect its own citizens, even in what should have been the safest of places for these girls. Now, during the Buhari administration's first term, 103 girls have so far been rescued through negotiations and prisoner swap. The first batch of 21 girls came in October 2016, and then another batch of 82 girls in May 2017. One group continues to mount pressure on the government, asking, no, actually demanding, that the girls be brought back and alive. Aisha Muhammad Oyebode is the Lagos coordinator of the Bring Back Our Girls movement. Let me begin by asking you, are there any indications? What do we know about the remaining girls 5 years after they were abducted and a year after the last batch of 82 were rescued? What do we know about these remaining girls?
So what we know is 112 girls out of the 219 that were taken into captivity are still with Boko Haram, which means that we actually have more girls still with Boko Haram that have actually been released. We know that the girls were held in very, very difficult and challenging circumstances because the girls that have returned have been able to tell us that. There's a lot of hunger, there's a lot of, a lot of violence, both in terms of physical and sexual violence. A lot of the girls have been forced to marry, and many of them have actually given birth to children.
Let me ask you, what is your considered opinion is President Muhammadu Buhari's commitment to bringing back these remaining girls? I mean, in 2015, the campaign train had, Chibok girls written all over it. But in 2019, we didn't see that take the front stage. What do you think is the commitment of President Muhammadu Buhari now that he has been re-elected?
I think, in terms of traction, after President Buhari became president, we did see quite a lot of traction. It was during that time, if you recall, that the first 21 were negotiated for in October 2016, and then in May 2017, the 82 were also negotiated for. So in total, we're talking about 107. And given that we had gone from 0 to 107, that's quite remarkable. But what is happening now, though, is that there's a lull. You're absolutely right. The issue of the Chibok girls was a major issue on the political agenda for the elections in 2015. In 2019, we didn't see that. There have been reports that we have lost some of the girls, and there have been also reports, again, like I mentioned earlier, that many of the girls have been married. But that notwithstanding, is not a reason not for us to bring back the remaining girls and to make sure that every single girl is accounted for. So there's actually a general law, not just even in Nigeria, but even across the world. If you remember in 2014, when it first happened, the whole world rallied behind us. But now it's gone quiet. Governments have changed, agendas have changed, and it just appears as if the whole issue around not just the Chibok girls, but girls that have been kidnapped and abducted by Boko Haram. You know of Leah Sharibu, who is one of the only Dapchi girl that still remains with them. You are familiar with the aid worker Alice Ngada, who is still in detention after the other two were executed. All of these seem to have just sort of gone off the agenda. So we need to bring them back on the agenda. It is critical.
Indeed. And let's look at the parents now. I mean, I'm lost for words to even think of how you console this parent. But I know you've had interactions with them. What do you tell them? I mean, 5 years down the line, what do you say to them?
What do you say to a mother who doesn't know where her daughter is 5 years ago? This child left home. She was going to school. She was going to write her final examinations. And then 5 years later, she still doesn't know where her daughter is. She doesn't know what condition she is in right now. What do you tell a parent? It's really, really sad. And, you know, even more challenging for them is that there now seems to be some kind of stigma that people are seeking to attach to the girls who have remained behind. So there's this whole thing of, well, yes, if your daughters decided to stay behind, that's the narrative that Boko Haram has been selling to the world, that the girls those who have remained with them have chosen to stay behind. So there's a stigma now, then they must be bad girls. They've decided to stay and consult and marry, and that's not the case. So, you can just imagine how traumatic it must be for these people at this time.
While April 14 may just be another day on the calendar to some, for parents and families of the missing Chibok girls, it is a day that should never have happened. This whole saga has no doubt put a huge stain on Nigeria's image, but it has probably taken a far worse toll on the families who their daughters have been torn away from them. But in all of this, spare a thought for the girls still in captivity of the Boko Haram sect, for they are the true victims here. And until they are found and reunited with their families, memorials like this are telling us that we must never forget them. Adesua Omoruan, Arise News, Lagos.